Welcome to Faith-Infused Leadership. I am your co-host, Meredith Banka, here with your host, Debbie Heiser, who is the founder of Three Vines Consulting. And today we're actually welcoming Cynthia GoErig, who is the founder of Legacy Life Consulting. So welcome to the show today, ladies.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited to talk to Cynthia today. And I'm super excited about that. And I wanted to start out and maybe talk a little bit about why Cynthia, why having guest speakers, and then why specifically Cynthia. So, as I thought about this, part of learning is understanding other people's philosophies on leadership and how leadership has impacted them and how their faith has impacted their leadership. And Cynthia and I sparked up a relationship. She actually had the office upstairs from my office. We both worked alone in our offices. And so there were occasions that we'd come down, she'd come down and we'd take breaks together and, just talk about things. And there was one particular one that I just think is so funny. And this was after our relationship had started a little bit, and I'll tell a little bit more about how that impacted my leadership. But one day she walks in and she looks at me and she goes, "Bitch, I'm Madonna." And it's such a great metaphor for like stepping into the power that we have, not only as women, but just as leaders. And, that was a little bit into our relationship, but we still kind of laugh about that. But the wonderful thing about Cynthia is sparking up that relationship. Cynthia is the type of person that gives back. And I have received so much coaching from her and just been impacted not only from a business perspective, but personally by her. And so I wanted her to come on and share a little bit about her life story and about leadership. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So Cynthia, tell us a little bit about you and how you've been on this leadership journey.
Okay. I want to talk about the bitch I'm Madonna because I think the philosophy behind it is so awesome. So in the industry, music, theater, whatever, I used to be a professional dancer in New York City. And so I still have a lot of people who are in show business, right? So in the show business industry, there's a saying that if you say you're going to do something or step into something, and if they say, "What? You can't do that." Or they say, "Who do you think they are? Who do you think you are?" Then you say back, "Bitch, I'm Madonna." And it means like, I can do anything, don't hold back. And so the funny thing is that Madonna actually heard this story and created a song, "Bitch, I'm Madonna." And that's the philosophy behind it. So I just love that because it really is about just like owning and stepping into it. So a little bit about me. My first career, I was a professional dancer in New York City. I knew from the age of 5 that I wanted to do that. And then afterwards, I traveled the world. It was wonderful in Europe. I lived in the Middle East for a while. I lived in Amsterdam and in Germany. And I loved dancing. I loved being on stage. I loved performing. I felt free. I felt in my element. I had a lot of personal demons, insecurities, that I truly only felt free on stage. When I turned 30, for some reason, I thought at that time that was really old and that I should have another career. I was sent, and I was a little bit lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my uncle sent me to a personal development workshop. And I went to that, and it just opened up my eyes into what possibilities of living my own life could be. So I moved from New York City to Sandpoint, Idaho, to work for that company and learn how to coach and train as a seminar leader. And from that point on, my life just opened up. And ever since then, I've been, I would say I'm more the reluctant leader than the I want to be a leader. I would say that leadership has found me. When I was dancing, I was just a performer, and then they approached me to be in management, and I stepped into it. At my first company, personal development company, I was just learning how to coach and teach, and within a few years, I became the CEO of the company and started leading it. I helped my uncle restart his company, and I was just going to stay for a year, and after a year, we did so well, he made me the CEO of the company, and I stepped into it. And then after a year of working with my uncle, it was obvious that people were getting in their own way pretty significantly in order to achieve success or love. And so somebody suggested, hey, why don't you start another company? And I did. And so I would say that I'm more of the reluctant leader, but when I do step into it, I fully embrace it.
So talk to us a little bit more about this concept of reluctant leadership, because I think that's a theme that we've come across before, and I'd love to hear your perspectives on it.
Well, it mostly came because I wrote an article, and in the end, the article was The Reluctant Leader. It started out as Leadership Sucks, or I think it was Leadership Totally Sucks. And then my team suggested that we change the title to it. And I was at this moment where it was this crossroads. And I was being seen as a leader, asked to be a leader, and I was still not fully comfortable stepping into being seen, fully being expressed, or fully being in my power. And, there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes with that, right? Like being suppressed or not shining, or if you shine too big, you're taking away light from other people. And I did a lot of personal work on it, but I always just had this feeling like leadership was just one step ahead of me, and I was just one step back. Maybe I had one foot in, because when I had to, I would step fully into it. So I came to this crossroads where I was like, wow, you are really not claiming and owning your leadership. And because of that, the service that you want to do in the world, you're not reaching as many people as you want to. You're not leading your team, because your team, in one company I have about 12 people, 12 employees, and another one I have 6. I said, by you not fully stepping in and claiming your leadership and owning it, you are pretty much letting the world down and letting your team down. And it's all just because of my personal stuff, right? So from that moment, I fully stepped in, I claimed it. And, I will say it has not been very comfortable. I don't think any of us are natural leaders, or if you are, great, write a book and have us all read it, because I find that leadership again and again continues to find me. And I have a choice at that moment, like step into your greatness or fall back behind the curtain. And it feels safer to be behind the curtain, but I don't think that's what that's not what my gift is. So
yeah. So when it comes to this concept, like you're saying, of having one foot in, not your whole self isn't in, like it's like you're playing the hokey pokey, but you haven't put your whole self in yet. That's how I think of it anyway. And then you say, then I decided. I think some people don't understand what that looks like to decide. Like, what is that? Like a flash? Is that a moment? Like, is there some event that happens and then all of a sudden you had clarity? Like when you say I decided, or I went all the way in, what was the switch?
Okay, that is a really, really good question. And I'm so glad you asked that, because now that I really feel into it, it's a choice. And I'm actually choosing every day. It's not like I decided and now I'm just this natural empowered leader. It's more, I make a choice every morning. I make a choice every day. I make a choice when I'm on a call. I make a choice before a seminar. I make a choice like literally every day. And that's coming from a heartfelt choice. It's coming from that bigger vision of what I want in my life. And that bigger vision is to serve. It is to contribute to the world in a big way, to give back. And the only way I can do that is if I am in my most empowered, authentic self. And so even, I'm choosing it even when it's highly uncomfortable. I'm choosing it when it's scary as all get out. And I'm still choosing it because there is a higher calling for me. And that's what motivates me. It's what gives my life flame and spark. So.
Cynthia, I'm glad you said spark and flame, because that's kind of my little thing, right?
Well, that's because you're a spark. You're like ignition.
Bless you.
After talking to you, you're always like so motivated. You're like ignition. That's how I think.
Wow, that's great. Thank you. Well, and Cynthia, I want to go back and touch on something, because I think it's important too to tie in how faith played into this, because you talk about your calling and what you feel called to do and stepping into that in an authentic way and being your authentic self. What role, if any, did faith play for you in that?
It's interesting. I remember as a child longing for structure. My family, I didn't grow up with any traditional religion. We talked at home, we had talked about like the Christmas story, and we prayed, but there wasn't any structure. And I actually remember as a child wanting to spend the night on Saturday night at friends' house that I knew went to church, because I would they seemed to have this groundedness that I was very curious about. So I, grew up, didn't have any particular religion or any kind of structure or groundedness at all. And then in 2009, it was probably like the darkest year of my life. There were many things that were happening personally and professionally, and it was sort of like, the implosion. And I was actually at a seminar, and it was just personal development seminar. And I was working with a coach, and I was just in ultimate despair, like complete despair. And I closed my eyes and I heard this voice, and it said, "Let go." And I completely relaxed. And from that moment, I was filled from my feet all the way through my body, out the top of my head, with white light. And I'd heard about, these experiences before, and I was like, yeah, right. But it was like, like I was plugged in, and it was euphoria. I've never experienced anything like that before. And this was witnessed in front of a group of like about 30 people. And the person who was coaching me or facilitating said, "Wow, what's going on?" And I said, I think I'm in heaven, or I've tapped into heaven, but I don't believe in heaven. And it was the most connected, opening feeling of love I've ever felt. And to me, faith is just that pure love. All despair, everything was just gone. People who were witnessing, they were like, "Yeah, we thought you were having like the best orgasm of your life. We just couldn't figure it out. We wanted it." And then I took that, and for about 3 months afterwards, like you've heard of, I don't know if you've ever read any Eckhart Tolle, but he talks about how he had this experience, then he just sat on a bench. And it was the same for me. For 2 to 3 months after that, I was in this complete, open, loving, connected. I felt into everything. I felt into the plants. I felt into the earth. I felt into people I didn't like, and I loved them, and it was just this complete opening. So for me, that turned a corner on everything. I was no longer just life coaching. I would call it like life calling coaching. And there was nothing else. There was nothing else after that other than it was like given a gift or a secret that you can't explain, but you always have with you inside. And so from that moment on, that feeling just represented the possibility of love in the world. And so at the seminars, I'll talk about the universe, I'll talk about God, I'll talk about source, I'll talk about even if it's just your heart or your faith. And to me, they all mean the same thing, which is love. And it's just this all empowering feeling of love and coming from this place. And so that was a huge turning point in my business, because nothing else mattered. Money didn't matter. Money's very nice, of course, but none of it really mattered other than just serving from that feeling.
Nice. Well, and you talk about serving from that feeling. If you looked at your trajectory and leadership finding you, what would you say are kind of the 3 lessons that you've learned throughout your leadership journey?
Good question. I would say claiming it. I mean, that's just, if you are already in a leadership, position, claim it, just own it. That would be one. And recognize it. And the other one that I fall back on every time I want to step into a new way of being is I find someone to emulate. I find someone that I admire, or I create, I'll take a little bit of Oprah, a little bit of Tony Robbins, a little bit of somebody else, and I'll make them into the next person that I want to step into. And so I think having an ideal or a mentor is key. Claiming your leadership. And then just asking yourself, what's going to be fun and awesome, right? And a lot of people get stuck on what product is really going to make it work, or who needs my services. And I really think that if you get into who do I want to work with every day? Who do I want to surround myself with? Who do I want to be in a room with? Who, what product just is so awesome that I feel it sells itself, then that gives you this vitality and this joy where you can't help but be inspirational. Even if it's to just one person, you can make a difference.
Yeah, kind of like the law of attraction, right? What you put out there.
Yes, good.
Yeah. So Meredith, awesome. Did you have some other questions too that you had?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I love the idea of having that mentor out there, right? Of someone to emulate. So when you are in a position where you feel like you want to take that next journey, like if we buy into the idea that we're all evolving, that we're meant to continue to change and develop and grow as leaders, then do you have like a formal mentor, or are you looking for more of, like you mentioned, a couple more like celebrity type folks? How does that work for you? Do you have someone that you work with that you're coached by?
Yes. Well, I have several different coaches. Because I do executive life coaching. So one of our values is, basically walk your talk, that we lead by example. And so every year I'll have anything from a business coach to a marketing coach to energy healer coach to a life coach. And so I do that, and I'll do my own personal retreats or get personal coaching anywhere between 2 to 4 times a month. As far as finding mentors, the seminar, I teach a foundational course seminar, Inner Legacy, and that has different elements to it. One is vision, one is letting go of the past, the other is personal freedom. And each section has a mentor that I learned from that concept to where they live it, they embody it. And so they are the mentors of that program. So that's one, is I'll take an idea that I really want to bring into my life, and I'll find who best represents that one quality, and then I'll bring it in. As I mentioned with this reluctant leader, for me, stepping into the forefront, being the face of my company, I truthfully much rather prefer it to be somebody else, but it doesn't really work if it's your company. So now I've been like literally playing around and reading stories or biographies of people who are like stars, right? Who are comfortable in front of other people, who are comfortable as themselves, who, like for me, that they're authentic, they're in their integrity, and you can tell that they're doing it not from their ego because they want to be a star or because they want to be famous. They're doing it because you can just see there is like a calling that is pulling them, right? And this is the best avenue for them to get out and to help and serve the world, right? So Oprah is an obvious one because, I mean, look at how many people she's helped, and her vibration is so big. And so she's an obvious one. So I have been reading stories about her and finding out about her, and there's some other people. I haven't settled on one yet, but I imagine that when I do, ideally there'll be a comfort in me to step into this new place of being seen, without, fear of criticism or fear of not being liked, or, all that good stuff that plays into the 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Right.
Right. I was going to ask you if that reluctance is fear-based.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. So what about new leaders? Like you're saying, leadership keeps finding you. I've got a really similar story. I think Debbie's got a really similar story, but I also don't think there's any coincidences, right? I think that's happening for you perfectly.
Yeah.
And so what about that new leader, that is leadership is finding them for maybe the first time, maybe the second time, and they're going through that process? What kind of guidance would you give them?
I would first say that everything is going to be okay. That you can't do any wrong. If it's finding you, you already have it in you. And as much as we want to be like somebody else or model after somebody else, that there is a trust somewhere deep down in your heart, in your soul, that this found you, and it's okay. And just water it as if it's a little tiny seed. Water it, nurture it, love it, hold it, cuddle it at night, and just be gentle and kind with yourself. It's awkward. It's like walking for the first time, like a child, and we see a child walking and they're determined and they're going to, and it's awkward and really uncomfortable. And, what do? Oh, good, it is so good. When the baby falls, like, oh, we speak another language that we've never heard come out of our mouth before. And we're like, oh, you put them up and you encourage. And, we don't go over there and kick the baby and tell the baby, hey, you're stupid falling down. Oh, don't you know how to walk? We don't do that. And so I would just encourage people to do that to themselves. Just be gentle, be kind, be loving. There's somebody in your life that just absolutely loves and appreciates you. So take that energy and turn it towards yourself. Like every time you feel you made a mistake, every time you're scared, every time you don't want to do something, every time it's uncomfortable, just keep stepping into it.
It's awesome advice. Awesome advice. Yeah. So the last thing that I really wanted to touch on today, Cynthia, is for you to share with us a time that Debbie has been a great example of leadership for you, or a time that she has really helped you step into your power or recognize something that was powerful for you.
Oh, easy. There's so many. Wow. So at the time I was like she said, I had I was a solo person, right? That's when I met her. It was me, one office, right? Now I have 2 companies and a whole bunch of people. And actually, Debbie and I met getting our hair done.
Oh, that's right. We did.
That's right. We met at the hair salon. So first of all,
I forgot that.
First of all, we were both gorgeous, right? Because that's why we were there. And I just remember thinking to myself, and I had thought this about a week before, that I needed to meet more powerful women that were, I couldn't describe it at the time, whether it was taking risks or being open, but I wanted to meet a powerful woman that I could befriend, who was also a colleague, and that I could respect. And so, of course, I love it within a week. And what Debbie keeps representing to me is she is consistent. She is consistent in her faith. She is consistent in her message. She's consistent in her growth. And she really represents, when I was talking before, how you choose it, and you choose it every day, and you choose it whether you like it or not. And so for me, that consistency and that groundedness is something that I had longed for in the past within myself. And it's even that same energy when I was younger, wanting to find like structure and groundedness. And every time, Debbie, you and I get together, you are just consistently stepping up and in. And I've seen you grow. I've seen you grow spiritually. I've seen you grow emotionally. I've seen you grow in the community. And I've just had the pleasure of being involved in your growth as a career. So I'm grateful to be here and just honored, very honored.
Oh, thanks so much for sharing that. That's awesome. That's awesome. So Debbie, if someone wanted to learn a little bit more about the work that you do and how they could become engaged with you, what's the best place for them to go and find that information?
Yeah, thank you. I would say go out to www.3vconsulting.com and or follow me on Facebook or Instagram. And I know Cynthia also has a website. Cynthia, I'm going to let you say it so I don't butcher it.
Okay. It is legacylifeconsulting.com.
Awesome. Well, for this episode of Faith-Infused Leadership, Cynthia, has been just a pleasure having you and getting to know you today. And as always, Debbie, love these conversations that we have. They're just so valuable and exciting to just share all of this great information. So thanks again for joining us on Faith-Infused Leadership. I'm your co-host, Meredith Benka, signing off with your host, Debbie Heiser, and our guest, Cynthia GoErig. Have an amazing day.